You're listening to The Rob and Tristan Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Refbox. Refbox, keeping your kids in bounds.
Hello, I'm Rob Case, and I'm joined by the one and only Tristan Bolton. Today's show is talking about cyberbullying.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, I just want to give a heads up to our audience ahead of time, especially since you might be listening to this in the car with kids and things that we're going to be talking about cyberbullying, and we're going to be talking about what might be considered some sensitive topics or what you may not want some sensitive ears to hear. So just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer on that. We wanted to talk a bit about cyberbullying, focus a little bit more on teens and their exposure to cyberbullying or possibly the contributions to cyberbullying. And there's a lot of stories that have hit the news about this over the past few years. Probably one that I certainly remember the most of, and when we were talking a bit offline, you're remembering this too, is the one with Amanda Todd. She was a young girl from British Columbia, and she'd met someone online, and while they were chatting, she was convinced to expose herself. So she exposed herself topless to this new person that she just met online. What happened next was the guy had taken a screenshot of the video stream that was coming through, and about a year later, he had posted these pictures online for her friends and classmates to see. There are a lot more details to the story, but unfortunately, the bottom line is that this picture was used by a cyberbully, and it ended up ruining her life to the point where she took her own life at the young age of 15. That's one of many stories, probably one of the more drastic ones, and unfortunately there's too many cases of the drastic ones of teens taking their own lives as a result of cyberbullying. But there's a lot that don't necessarily take it that far, but still get impacted quite negatively from this experience.
Yeah, it is sad. I did a little research for the show, and I was looking at some of the data supplied by the CDC. They pointed out that suicide is actually the third leading cause of death among young people these days. By their data, actually 14% of high school students have admitted that at some point they've contemplated suicide, and 7% have actually attempted it. It works out in the U.S. to about 4,400 young people that are killing themselves every year. And there's a strong link between cyberbullying and these attempts, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's important for us to be talking about it.
I think it's an important topic for sure, and I think it's important first and foremost for parents to be aware of it, and I think many are, but more than just kind of aware that it's out there, but actually kind of understanding the nuts and bolts of it and what to watch out for. Neither one of us are experts. Obviously, you're a marketing expert, and I'm a technical consultant, so I did reach out to Dr. Danielle M, and she's a professor at Wilfred Laurier. Let me just play a little bit of intro about her, and then we'll get into some of her answers.
Well, I'm a professor in psychology and youth and children's studies at Wilfred Laurier University. And my main area of research focuses on cyberbullying and how young people are using social media and how their use of social media influences their social, emotional, and cognitive development.
So that was Danielle M from Wilfred Laurier. And Rob and I really appreciate that she was taking the time to answer a few questions and help get the message out to parents, what we think they should know, certainly what she thinks parents should know about cyberbullying. So to get things started, I basically asked her how the internet is shaping our children's experiences and perception on the world. And this is what she had to say.
Well, it's shaping them in a myriad of ways. But young people really do love the internet, and there are a lot of positive things that come out of using social media and the internet. So, for example, children and teenagers and even adults love using the internet because all their friends are on it, so they can stay very well connected with other people. And of course, you can read about different perspectives and learn new things. And oftentimes, children and youth who might feel isolated offline can find a community online, which helps to build their sense of self and their self-esteem, and that heightened sense of self or that heightened sense of self-esteem can then be transferred offline, and they can feel better about themselves because of that positive connection they have online. But some of the things that are different from the past, or some of the things that are shaping young people now, is that they do seem to be a little bit more self-focused. So it's a bit of a paradox because we go online and we're connected to so many people and we have so many friends on Facebook, but despite this broader community where we're all connected electronically, there's still this sense of isolation. So people are still on their own, looking at their screens in their room or at home, or just as they're walking, they're still very isolated. So you're still on your own as you look at these screens. And there's this desire to post pictures of yourself doing things. So that's where the selfie comes in, and portray yourself online in a certain light so that other people perceive you in a certain way. So we have a lot of people posting selfies of themselves in order to be perceived a certain way, or to feel connected, or to achieve some kind of positive reinforcement with number of likes or number of comments as they post these pictures. What we're also finding is that people find it easier to say things online that they wouldn't normally say offline. So being behind the screen offers a sense of protection where people can say things and post things about other people or to other people that they wouldn't dare say face-to-face. So those are just a few things that make things different from the past.
There certainly is a lot of ways kids can engage with each other online these days. I think led us to, ask the question directly, what is cyberbullying? What's her definition?
So basically cyberbullying or cyber aggression is when a person or a group of people create websites or post mean messages or pictures of someone or a group of people in order to cause harm. So their intention is to cause harm and to demonstrate power over someone else. So cyberbullying happens in many ways, and a few examples would include texting mean messages to someone on their phone and kind of spamming them with mean messages, posting embarrassing pictures or videos of someone on social media sites and asking people to make rude comments about them, posting mean messages in general on social media sites. Some people are even creating questionnaires online and asking people to fill them out or vote on how ugly someone might be. There are even websites or apps where people, like Ask FM, where it's all anonymous and you can ask whatever question you want and people will just say what they think about somebody, and they're oftentimes quite mean and quite rude.
That was Danielle's answer as to what cyberbullying is. Rob, I'm curious. My kids are much younger. I mean, my oldest is only starting school this year. But your kids being older, have you had to deal with the challenges of cyberbullying?
Yeah, thankfully, I haven't had to actually experience any of that yet, though I'm constantly aware and trying to stay on top of watching these things, especially with both of my kids now being of high school age. It's a concern. And I find I'm watching them really closely when they get home after school too. That something like the Amanda Todd story, that's the kind of thing that really resonates with you as a parent. It's hard to not translate that into, something you need to watch your own kids for.
Yeah, so I was really grateful to talk to Danielle Law, and I'm hoping that any other parents that are listening to today's show also takes away from what she's offering. But certainly parents need to stay on top of things, and I think they know this, and hopefully with Danielle Law's advice, we can help know what to watch out for. One question that I had for Danielle Law when we were talking to her was, I think a lot of people would ask this question, is why, right? I mean, everyone's gone to school and everyone understands that there's bullies and stuff like that, but I think cyberbullying, it's a very different angle. It's a very different flavor of bullying. And I think part of it is because it's not geographically local, right? I mean, it could be just worldwide. Anybody can say anything. So I was interested, considering her background, what she thought maybe would be a driving force. And ultimately, why do people cyberbully? And this is what Professor Danielle had to say.
I think it's just that sense of protection where you just feel safe and secure when you're doing it alone at home, or even if you're behind a screen and there are friends with you and you're posting someone, you're not seeing the reaction of your harmful words in the eyes of the other person that you're hurting. So it just seems like fun and games. And oftentimes young people will say, oh, well, we were just joking and we were just having fun. But it's really causing harm to the other person and they're not seeing that in their face. And when they post these things online, they gain a sense of power because they get a lot of likes and a lot of comments from other people. As thousands of people are seeing their message. And as more people comment and more people like what they're saying, it just fuels that sense of power and it just keeps going.
So that was Danielle from Wilfred Laurier, and I was asking her basically, what's the driving force behind some of this? And I thought it was really interesting because I think there's a sense of security. If someone is cyberbullying, right, they're sitting in their house or wherever they're comfortable, they're sitting online and they can just post whatever they want. And they may not even have much time between the time that they've read something or they've seen something, and they form an opinion and type it and hit enter. They may not even think, like what she's saying, that they're not seeing maybe the pain that's caused. It's not a very human connection, right? It's all virtual, and I think there's a sense of, not only a sense of comfort because it's in your zone, but then also just a sense of disconnect because you're not actually seeing the direct impact of your actions.
Yeah, and it's sad that there seems to be this community online that's more than happy to encourage these bullies' activities, whether they're liking posts or cheering them on in whatever they're doing. That's an unfortunate, I guess, aspect of it.
And that's what I was trying to say earlier about cyberbullying, right? Is that, bullying in a school is one thing if it's in person. And it's a whole other thing if it's on the world stage on the internet, and not only do you get the active participants of the bullying, but then you also get those that kind of egg them on and actually make those that are in fact doing the bullying. You're almost empowering them and encouraging them. But I will say, and I've been pleasantly surprised when I've seen this, and sometimes in smaller forms, like on, say, news article comments, and sometimes in larger forms on Facebook or whatever. But there are times that people will stick up for the victim, right? As much as people are advocating for the bully to keep going at it. So it's not all one way, but especially for the victim of the cyberbullying, they sometimes may only see it that one way, right? They may only see the negative, and they might not realize all the people that are coming alongside them. I did talk to Danielle M from Wilfred Laurier, and she's answered already some really great questions. I do want to play some of her other answers. It's mostly around what kids should do and what parents should do if they in fact think that their child might be a victim of cyberbullying. Before we go into that, I just want to take a quick break and just mention our sponsor, RefBox, and when we get back, we'll play Danielle M's answer.
Protect your children from the dangerous side of the internet. Introducing the RefBox. The RefBox filters all devices connected to your home network, tablets, Macs, PCs, and more. And there's no software installation needed. Simply plug in the box and your family is protected against adult content, extreme violence, and dangerous phishing sites. Learn more by visiting refbox.ca. That's refbox.ca. RefBox. Keep your kids in bounds.
Welcome back. We've been talking with Wilfred Laurier's professor, Danielle M, regarding cyberbullying, and Rob Case, my co-host, and I have been trying to basically get as much information we can out there to parents to try and help them certainly become more aware of it and be aware of some of the tools that we have found and that Danielle M has highlighted for parents when it comes to cyberbullying. So I did ask her what things kids can do, right? Kids don't, especially in their adolescence, they don't want to necessarily go straight to the parents with something that maybe they have the power to handle. This was first Danielle's answer on what kids can do, and then we'll get into what she suggests parents can do.
The first thing that we usually tell children when they feel hurt by someone online is not to retaliate. So we ask them to simply say very firmly or to write confidently, please stop it, or that's not nice, please stop it, or I don't like this post, please take it down. And this can be done in a private message to the person who posted it. And oftentimes the person who made the embarrassing post didn't actually mean any harm. So oftentimes young people will say, oh, we were just kidding. We didn't mean to hurt you. So if they meant it as a joke and they didn't think it was hurtful, if you simply say stop it or please take it down, then that can just stop everything right in its tracks. But if it doesn't stop, we still ask that the victim does not retaliate, because retaliation only makes things worse and exacerbates the whole situation. So now both people are actually engaging in the mean behaviors. There's this reciprocal, this back and forth of mean messages. So the key here is do not retaliate. But there are a number of things that our research has shown that young people find helpful in stopping it, and one is simply ignoring it. So many of our older teenagers have said that if they ignore it, it'll eventually go away. But sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, another recommendation would be to take screenshots of what the perpetrator is saying or doing and use that as evidence. So then you can bring this to the principal or you can bring this to the police and show them that this is what's happening. I didn't say anything mean back. I didn't do anything wrong. Here is the mean post or the mean message, and now you can give it to the proper authorities to help handle the situation. But one of the things that we're really working on is encouraging witnesses to step up and be there for the victim. What I'm currently doing, and what a few of us in the field are doing, is developing programs on how to be an active witness if you see cyberbullying happening online. Because online there are thousands of people who see bullying, and these witnesses can make a choice. They can either see it and do nothing, see it and contribute to the mean posts, or they can stick up for the victim by telling the bully to stop without actually being mean to the bully. So just telling them, you know what, this is a really mean post and you should stop it. And research is also indicating that the majority of young people will not go to an adult if they are hurt online, but 60% will go to a friend. So these programs that we're working on are meant to help young people be good witnesses and be good friends and help stop bullying without actually retaliating and without actually being mean in return.
So, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's funny. She reminds me of a story I recall reading a few months ago about a mother who had discovered her daughter was getting rude comments made to her online, and the mother had identified the boys through their profiles and had actually tracked down their mothers on Facebook. And the mother had then gone after each of the mothers and let them know what their sons were up to. And apparently the mothers all vowed to make sure their sons were sorry for it. And I remember thinking that was a really cute story, but in this context kind of puts a dark tint on it for me. But it does make me curious to know, what are some of the things she thinks parents should do. And I'm curious if she thinks that the whole hunt down the kids' parents on Facebook thing would have been useful, but I don't believe we've actually asked that question outright.
No, I didn't get to that part directly. I did ask her what parents should do, and I do want to play that answer coming up. But her answer about what kids should do, I thought was a very good answer, and it was there was a lot of information there. So I just want to touch on a few things. First and foremost, encouraging the kids just to reply back, saying, "Stop! I don't like this. Don't retaliate. Especially don't retaliate." That was really important, which is relatively easy to just kind of say something mean back, and it's not always as easy to not say something mean back, but definitely don't retaliate, and definitely just let them know that, hey, I didn't appreciate this. Because what we were talking about earlier, and being in the comfort of your own home and just saying something, you may not realize what you said was mean, right? Some people certainly know what they're doing, others may not. And so I thought that was an interesting and reasonably good first step. But then if it does continue to escalate, then that's where taking screenshots, so that way you don't get into a he said, she said, you can't deny what the screenshots show, represent yourself as somebody that didn't retaliate, and then go seek somebody in authority. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. So whether it's the perpetrator's parents or a principal or possibly the police, depending on the nature of things, seeking authority to try to resolve the issue.
I think it's really sad too that she actually said that the majority are well, she didn't actually imply the majority, but that was her essential statement, that most kids won't actually talk to their parents when they've been hurt by something online, but 60% of them would actually go to a friend. That makes me actually wonder as a parent if I'm cultivating the right kind of relationship to have my kids open enough that if something like that happened, they would actually talk to me about it. Based on what she said, I'm actually quite concerned.
It's funny. We've talked to a lot of psychologists now, or even police and stuff like that, when we've been doing these podcasts. And it's a pretty common theme about having that openness. And we had another podcast where someone had mentioned being curious about what your kids are doing online and just fostering that relationship. But it's interesting that you took out of this, Rob, that you wonder if you're fostering that relationship with your kids well enough. I take out of that, I wonder if I can give my kid the tool to be a good friend to somebody that may come seek them for help, right? So, I'm thinking about when my kids start to hit ages where they might have friends that might come to them and say, hey, I'm getting this online or whatever. Will my kids know what to do and how to be a good friend to them? Whether that includes what Danielle is talking about and advocating online and saying, hey, don't do this or stop doing this or whatever. Don't be mean back, but just stand up for what's going on, or to saying, you know what, let's go talk to your parents or my parents or the principal or whatever it might be. So it's just different takeaway from the same advice.
Yeah, I think your takeaway is a little more optimistic, but I really like the idea of if you're teaching your kid how to potentially help another child, by default, you're accidentally teaching the kid how to potentially help themselves in the same situation. So yeah, I agree. It's a good way to look at it.
It's a fair point. It's a hard balance, right? It's life of parents, and why we try to seek some advice where we can too. I asked Danielle Law from Wilfred Laurier what parents should do if they think their kids have become a victim of cyberbullying or has witnessed it or possibly even contributing to it. And this was her answer.
Yeah, so what we're finding repeatedly, and oftentimes because parents are worried and they're stressed out and they want to protect their child. Nobody wants to see their child being harmed online. So their first instinct is, well, I need to control what's going on, and I need to monitor what's going on, and I need to stop this. I'm going to see it, and I want to control everything that's going on with my child online. So what our research is finding is that parents need to talk to children about what it means to be kind and also foster a relationship with their children that is less about control and rules and more about trust. So many times young people are not telling their parents because they think that if they tell their parents that they're in trouble, their parents are going to take away their phone, take away their computer, and basically spy on them. So why on earth would they tell their parents what's going on if they feel like they're going to be punished for it? So the key here is to build a trusting relationship. And research shows that families with a strong sense of cohesion and ability to talk to each other openly and create boundaries together, rather than having a top-down approach where the parents are setting all the rules, this is more highly linked with responsible internet use.
So that was Dr. Danielle Law from Wilfred Laurier, and her response to what parents should do, specifically if they think their kids are a victim of cyberbullying. And I can picture it too. I can so picture my kids, and I'm sure you can, if they were coming to you saying, hey, I think this is being done, or I don't like this, or, especially if they're very upset and you see what's going on, you'd be like, oh, this is it. I'm shutting down the internet. I'm taking control, and no, I want to protect my kid, and this is never going to happen to them again. And what she's saying is that, it's like one of the worst things a parent can do, because it goes to her earlier question about how kids are experiencing the world and how their perception of the world is changing as a result of their experience on the internet. And there's a lot of positive things out there. And so if you take it all away, ultimately punishing the child for something that they're just a victim of, then that's really not fair, and ultimately not encouraging the child to come to you when there's problems. So taking much more constructive steps, where she mentioned taking screenshots and speaking to an authority, whether that's the parent or a principal or possibly the police, again, depending on content, can help make sure you solve that problem, but still allow the child to be on the internet safely.
With everything kids are doing, games and everything else, it's a whole other life, that's a universe that they live in. And in some cases, most of us do now. I personally think that if I was in a situation where I went to someone and said, hey, I had a problem, I got, hacked, or I had some ransomware take over my computer, and they suddenly turned around and said, that's it, no computer for you. When I got that computer back, I don't think I'd ever tell them again. I'd pay the ransom, right, and get my computer unlocked and not bother. Just because, that's my world too. I have my social networks and my everything else. And it's funny, I don't think I'd ever actually considered it that way until she said that. Because I have a feeling that I would have reacted in the opposite way of what she's encouraging, which would have been like, that's it, no more iPod for you. Clearly you're getting into too much trouble with this thing. I probably would have removed all the electronics. And again, as is a common case with myself, I would have missed an opportunity to have a discussion with my kids that might have helped them, as opposed to doing something that may cause me to have to pay for their therapy later.
So you're just helping yourself. No. Yeah, it's a whole brave world out there for parents and their kids and what the internet means. And I've really enjoyed talking with all different kinds of experts, and a special thanks to Dr. Danielle Law from Wilfred Laurier for her time. And I'm really hoping that others are finding the answers to be beneficial to their parenting styles too, right? I think there's some really great advice there. So just got to start wrapping things up. We've been talking about cyberbullying, and it's a bit of a sensitive topic. And we did kick this off with the story about Amanda Todd, and that there are more and more of those extreme cases actually hitting the news. But there's a whole spectrum from the extreme down of kids that are experiencing the cyberbullying. And so Dr. Law had some ideas about how to foster a trusting relationship, and then also what to do if your kids are in fact being bullied, which includes not retaliating, possibly just start by messaging them privately and saying, please stop doing this, right up to taking screenshots and taking it to an authority. Rob, was there anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, the one thing we didn't touch on is there's actually a lot of online movements, companies or organizations or just groups that have been set up by parents who are also trying to encourage kids and adults to assist in trying to diminish or defend against cyberbullying. There's the pink shirt movement, which one has been fairly popular now for a few years, where, on certain days everybody shows up in pink shirts to show their support against bullying, and a lot of the same steps that are being taken in the offline world to try to prevent offline bullying are also being rallied together by people online. So while it seems like there's a lot of problems with the bullying, I think it's important to know that there are people taking action, and there's ways that you and I can take action as well if we want through social networks. So again, it's, cyberbullying is definitely a dark part of the internet, but there's some good that can be done through it as well. So it's certainly worth looking into.
Yeah, and Dr. Law, she did have some emphasis to that, right? And so just to cover that now is the, stand up, right? Don't just be a bystander to the bully or the bullying that might be going on, but actually speak your mind to it and say, hey, this is not appropriate, or, just flat out disagree with the statement that's being said, whatever it is. But the victim is obviously reading this, and the more encouragement they can read versus the negative, the better. Again, not to retaliate, so don't come in as a third party, start shouting things back at the comments, but just showing your support to the victim and removing your support from the bully can also help.
Or going after their mom.
That's right. Yeah. Contacting the parents. Okay, well, you've been listening to the Rob and Tristan Show, and today we've been speaking with Dr. Law from Wilfred Laurier regarding cyberbullying, and hope everybody has a good day.